Welcome to my weekly review. You're looking at a daily chart of the Nasdaq, which had this 27% correction from December 16th to April 7th. And then we have rallied to new highs above the 20,204, which was your December 16th high. And so the question I get is, how long will the rally last? I'll get there in a minute. But I just want to point out a couple things. The much discussed golden cross, where the 50-day moving average has traded through the 200, which is the black line here, the slower term moving average. The 50, which is the red line, is crossed above the black line. I believe I have the moving average. I got to switch this. Yeah, I have the 5. On the index, I used the 10. On the leading stocks, I used the 5. But you can see it's found support here during this uptrend at the 21 and then now at the 10. And it's getting a little extended, I would say. So I'm expecting a pullback here coming soon. It's 8.5% above the 50. Very nice, strong uptrend, beautiful rally. We've enjoyed it, but I wouldn't be surprised if we have a little bit of a pullback here and relieve some of this buying pressure and have some profit taking ahead of earnings season, which is upcoming. On Friday, on Thursday, the half a day, it was up 208 points or 1.02%, closed at 20,601. Of course, the volume was lighter on that shortened holiday schedule there on the session was on Thursday. I want to go to the weekly chart because people ask me, how long will this rally last? What can we expect here? And we're all speculators. We want to, know what to expect going forward. And, that's the beauty of the market. We're all speculators and nobody knows. But we want to take a look back to maybe see what would happen going forward. And I just want to point out, since this bear market here of 2022, when Chairman Powell was raising interest rates, this kind of a interest rate induced bear market, we've had several rallies here. The first one lasted 18 weeks. And then we had this nice sharp pullback to the 200. Then we had a 20-week rally after this, the three wave down, 20 of 23, summer, fall, uh, correction. And then we had this nice 20-week rally following that. Then we had a little pullback here below the 50 and above the 200. But after that correction, we had a 12-week rally. So you're looking at 18, yeah, 16, gosh darn it, 18, 20, and 12. Okay. So that's typically what you're going to get out of a rally, like a 12 to 20 week rally. 20 is a little long, 12 is a little short, and 18 is about right. And recently, before the December 16th high, we had this 15-week rally. So, you're looking at 18, 20, 12, 15. And now in this rally here, we're at 11 weeks. So we're closer to the end than the beginning of a rally. But it can certainly, pull back 1 week and rally 5 more weeks. So if we do have a pullback this week, don't be discouraged. I still think it's a buy the dip environment. And I still think we can have a decent rally into July. But like I said, earnings are coming up, earnings season with the new data points. I think investors are going to be cautious this week. I may get to that in a minute. I'm going to go first. I guess I'll go to the SPY. I guess. Why not? The S&P, same thing on the S&P where we had the 50 trade through the 200, getting a little extended here above that 50. This index is 6.7% above the 50. It was up 52 points on Thursday, 0.83%. The volume was lighter on the shortened session, but these indexes are getting a little extended as they make new highs. And as we make new highs in stocks and in indexes, you're going to find more bullish people. People pile in at the highs, when we should be getting a little more cautious. The sentiment becomes more bullish, because of the price. Price dictates sentiment, and people get more bullish when, you hear on the news that the Dow or the Nasdaq's making new highs, or the S&P 500. People want to be part of that. So that's people get more bullish and they want to pile in, and then they get the correction and they lose money and they get upset and they say the market's rigged when they weren't paying attention, down here. Now they get interested up here. So just be a little careful here. I'm expecting a pullback. I think I've said that a couple times. I don't know if it'll be this week or the next week, but ahead of earnings for sure. All right, that's enough of that nonsense. I want to get to stocks because I trade stocks, not indexes. NVIDIA, I have to point this out. A new high for NVIDIA has got to be bullish, right? If you look at the weekly chart, yeah, we can see there's like a year of consolidation here. And it's just, I'm going to turn this off because it's bugging me. Yeah, it's a year of consolidation breakout. And yeah, NVIDIA looks strong. NVIDIA, Microsoft, and Meta Platforms are the three, strongest of the Mag 7. I'm not going to go through the Mag 7 here. Meta, Zuckerberg doing his 4th of July thing. By the way, hope you all had a nice 4th of July celebration yesterday. Meta's pulled back to its 10 here, and I'm going to switch this to the 5 if you will just bear with me for a minute because I'm going to go through some leading stocks and they're finding support at the 5. So that's an important moving average. All right, that's it for the Mag 7. I'm done with them. Since I did show you NVIDIA, I want to show some other semiconductor names. This is Taiwan Semiconductor. Making new highs. That's obviously quite bullish. Broadcom, another one of these large stocks in the Nasdaq 100. This is trading near new highs. Yeah, right at new highs. So that one looks fine as well. And this is why people are bullish, right? And then another one, TSEM, Tower Semiconductor, set up in a base here, popped, last week here nicely out of this little base here, a nice little pullback pattern there. And yeah, it was up nearly 7%. Another one, of course, a lot of people talk about is AMD. Once again, earnings are coming up here for a lot of these names. And I think there's going to be some caution ahead of that. This one made, big, powerful move here with all this volume profile here. This is not Aunt Sally moving this stock. It's got huge supply. So it takes demand to move that supply. And you're seeing that with, 5 weeks of above average volume to the upside. So AMD looks pretty good to me as well. 26% off its 52-week high. All right, that's enough of the semiconductors. I wanted to get to a couple of the leading names. I know people don't like these names, but I'm just pointing out this is Anglo Gold Ashanti. This is a top performing gold stock. Made that high of 51.11 after it broke out. Now it's pulled back here, pulled back to the 50 and bounced. I like this. They're right about $47, which trading just a tick below it right now. So yeah, that one looks good to me. Another one is WPM Wheaton Precious Metals, another one that made that high and now is pulled back. I post the price of gold every morning at mcstockcharts.com, and you got to pay attention to that because a lot of these trade with the price of gold, which has rallied obviously over the past year or so. And then Agnico Eagle Mines, a Canadian gold play, cup with handle pattern, pull back to the 50. This one looks good as well. So I like the gold stocks right now, not to get heavily into them, just have a little exposure there. Another top group is the steel specialty alloys group. This is Carpenter. Obviously broke out of a double bottom base, not looking back, surfing the 5, like Kelly Slater. That one is super strong. And then ATI. Another one that's just, yeah, broke out, looks fantastic, surfing its moving average. As long as they find support at the moving average is trading higher. It doesn't take long to make money in stocks looking like that. And then the last group that I want to look at is the alternative energy group, GEV. I think you got to own one of these, either GEV or something in this group. And this one's been a monster for a long time. If I go back a year, you can see it's been up, 193% gain, as opposed to, the SPY, totally outperforming the SPY. So anyway, all right. Let's move on. What else do we have in this group? Oklo, obviously, strong performer as well. Once again, if I go to the comparison, um, I'm going to tone that light down a little bit. Yeah, it's up 600% in the last year. Thank you very much. We'll take that. And then LEU, Centrus Energy, another one that just been a huge winner. It's been the biggest winner this year in this group, and it's up 324% in the past year. So these have been strong. A lot of speculation here. And I'm going to get to the speculation in the market. We're all speculators, like I said earlier. And yeah, I'm going to get to that in a minute. Somebody asked me to cover Synopsys, and they had news last week. And this is Synopsys and Cadence, they have kind of a duopoly in this group. This is a computer software design. They design for semiconductors. And yeah, this has just been a big winner for a long time. Pull back, and you could say this is just a consolidation pattern here, where it's been consolidating for a while, a little pullback, and now the last couple of weeks it bounced nicely. So yeah, Synopsys these are good, long-term holds. I don't really trade these, but the consistent, steady growers. There you can see Cadence had a nice bounce. 5% on Thursday. I'm sure it has a similar type of yeah, pattern there with, longer term, kind of like, yeah, just consolidating. Then you get the pullback. And the last 2 weeks, this one has bounced as well. So both of those, are fine. I just covered those because I was asked about them. They had the balance, but it was news related, and that's fine. But still, they're going to, give you this type of growth down here. And this is what I look for is the growth in stocks, because I'm kind of old school that way, the William O'Neill, Peter Lynch type of speculator, I want a little bit of earnings and sales growth to go with my stocks and not get too caught up in, the suckers going up type of trade, but you can make a lot of money on those stocks as well. I'm not here to criticize or any of that stuff, but since I'm on this topic, I got to go to the quantum computing, which is, highly speculative. Sure, there's going to be growth here, but right now, I mean, IONQ has 11 billion market cap with what, I don't know, 30 billion in excuse me, 30 million in sales. I mean, so this is trading like, gazillion times sales. Losing money, no return on equity, negative cash flow. Very difficult for me to buy this stuff. I mean, excuse me, it's very difficult for me to hold this stuff. But you can buy these for trades, and this one has set up nicely. Last week, it ran up, from 18 to 48. Some people call that a high tide flag. You can call it whatever you want, but I just like this, a series of higher lows as it pinched in here and then it popped, pretty decent last week, 10%. I think we'll all take that. There you can see it on the weekly. I think even better here. Made that high, and then pull back, higher lows, a series of higher lows as it pinched in, then popped. The pinch and pop trade, 10% move. But like I said, these are highly speculative, and you're just trading these on technicals and not, these are not. I don't think these are long-term investments because they don't have any sales or earnings growth. Maybe they'll get them, in the future, and when they do, they'll probably sell off because they're getting priced in right now, all the growth. This is Rigetti, another one of these quantum. Look at the sales here. This is 2 million, 1.5 million. I mean, that's, pocket change for, some folks here. But you can't deny this move, and I'd say people ask me, is this a high type flag? People get caught up in patterns. Yeah, I guess you could say that's, yeah, that's a high type flag, on the weekly. But if you're trading this, you're probably just, swing trading this for, short periods of time. Rigetti is set up here. I like it. Sure, I like it. It's above its moving averages. I like it above the Thursday high of 1347. It's probably going to take out the 1530. Like once again, I say this is just a technical trade. This is not something that, it's not Costco or Waste Management or Home Depot where you're going to set it in your retirement account and forget it. To me, these are just swing trades. And Rigetti, yeah, looks good on a swing trade. But this is all speculation. A lot of the growth is being priced in, and nobody knows how much growth these companies will have, that they certainly don't have it right now. That's, and I guess I'll go through the other ones, but it's the same profile, same thing. This is 5 billion market cap for, 20 million in sales. But there you can see the same type of, profile on the daily where they, made a new high, then pull back. Yeah, I think these are definitely, actionable here. I think Stewie calls these like holy grail trades. Shout out to Trader Stewie, my Arizona neighbor. But yeah, this made, the high tight flag, if you will, type of pattern here, which has got this pull on the weekly, and then it pulls back and makes this, I don't know, flag or a wedge pattern. So yeah, these are good stocks to trade. They move a lot. There's a lot of interest in them. They've got a ton of volume. But you've got to know what you're getting into here when you're buying these things. To me, these are just trades. Another one set up nicely, went from what, 5 to 21, then pulled back to its 21. Now it's starting to move again. So this is quantum computing, QUBT. So I'm not bagging on these things at all. I'm just saying know what you own here. And like I said, this is not Costco or Home Depot or Waste Management. This is highly speculative. If I go to the balance sheet, they're losing money, no return on equity. So just know that going in. So there's a lot of speculation for growth in those names, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's just what you're getting into. Same with the people mover, these space taxis or whatever you want to call them. Archer, I mean, you can see this group is, ranked really high. So these stocks have been doing really well. Once again, losing money, no cash flow. Look at the sales here. I mean, limited sales at all. So there's a lot of speculation that they're going to have growth going forward, but you're looking at a 5.5 billion market cap for Archer and JOBY. Same thing, same profile, a lot of speculation. You could say, JOBY, you could say this has just been setting up in a base for a long time, right? Little pullback here and now, popped last week, 11, 12%. Maybe it's getting ready to move. Heavy short interest, but and it's got an 8.3 billion market cap for like no sales. So yeah, everything's, being priced in here. It's totally speculative, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just, does that fit your style? Do you have the tolerance for stuff like that? So that's all. All right, I got to move on here. Got to go to the crypto names because these ones, once again, I do not throw these in with the, highly speculative, quantum and the people movers, space taxis or whatever, because this is IREN, it's got some heavy short interest, but they have sales and they have a little bit of cash flow. You're looking at, increasing sales. You got, triple digit sales growth. You got earnings growth. I mean, these guys are expected to earn, 91 cents next year. I mean, so this is not a fly by night company. I think this is undervalued. I know it's moved a lot. So this gets people to say, well, this thing's too much. It's too high. It's made this, big move. You could say this is just like a cup with handle there, if you will. Nice pullback and a bounce the last couple weeks. And I'd say take a look at the weekly charts. And it had this high of 1575 July 12th. So it's been 1 year consolidating in this base. And now to me, it just broke out, last week 20%. And it had a nice week the prior week. And that's why people say it's extended. Yeah, 33% followed up by 20%. And it is extended, but if you look at that weekly chart, I think it still has room to trade higher. And once again, this is a fundamental play. I mean, it's got, sales and earnings growth. And like I said, it's going to earn, allegedly expected to earn a buck next year, 91 cents. And yeah, for a $16 stock, $17 stock, I don't think that's too crazy. 3.3 billion market cap. Well, I don't know, for roughly 500,000 in sales. So trading about 6 times sales. So not wildly overvalued like those stocks that I just showed you. CIFR, similar. Bitcoin related. I know Bitcoin's been in the news a lot, and I'm not going to get into the news today. I'm just looking at stocks technically and fundamentally. This one has a market cap of 2.2 billion. Their sales are like 2 million. So this is trading like 10 times sales, so a little more expensive than IREN, but this is a CIFR mining. Growth maybe getting priced in here. You're looking at triple digit sales growth here. And as a growth investor or, swing trader, this is the type of stuff that I look for. Even though it's, $6 stock, and I know the institutions aren't, going to be piling in here. Yeah, but um, good for trades, good for trades. And I think you got to look at the weekly here. And this thing is just consolidating in a base for like the last year. Kind of similar to IREN, this little base, and you had this little pullback here in the last couple weeks. You got some interest, and this is why people say, it's overextended, it's overvalued, blah, blah, blah. It's going higher, the big volume coming in. That's not me and you buying that or Aunt Sally. Yeah, some institutions are getting into these things. A Wolf is another one. I'm not going to do all these. I'm just going to go through these quickly here. Just breaking out of that 465, last week. A very nice move. 25%, yeah, it's okay to take a swing at these. These are speculative. The growth is coming. It was up 15% last week. This is Riot. Nothing wrong with that. Mara. Yeah, I mean, to me, these are not overextended. Mara just broke out of a base last week. This one's got cash flow, 19% return on equity. So the balance sheets, these are not speculative like the ones I just showed you with the people mover taxi, air taxis and the quantum computers. Totally different animal here. And I like growth. I like big blue numbers, and I like some fundamentals behind my stock. So that would be an area that I would take a swing at. All right, I'm going to move on because I got a lot of stuff to get to today. Datadog included in the S&P 500, announced Wednesday after the close, and then Thursday had a nice 15% bounce. Just going to go through some software names here as I go through my themes. I went through the semiconductors. What did I do? The crypto, the people movers, the quantum. Now I'm doing software. So yeah, just going to do some themes and then some relative strength stocks before I shut it down for the weekend. Palantir doing nothing wrong, but this was a top performing S&P 500 stock in the first half of 2025. Probably not going to repeat that feat in the second half, but still a leading software name. And if you like pullbacks, if you like buying stocks on pullbacks and not chasing performance near the highs, this thing's pulled back decently. I believe it was like 148. Yeah, 148.22, and then it pulled back to 128. Now you're getting it at 134. So Palantir's, um, it's just a leading software name, and I'd say that 133.49 would be, decent entry for you right there if you're interested in Palantir. Okay, and Oracle, I've got to mention Oracle. They raised numbers. The CFO said the demand is off the chain, and this is another one, like your Costco or Waste Management, where you just sitting in a retirement account, and this thing has been, you know, for a long, long, long time, has been working well. So Oracle, well-managed company, and I think it will continue to do so. And this is, yeah, just a leading stock, that is very, how shall I say, it's qualified to sit in your retirement account. I don't say set it and forget it. I never say that. I would just say, you can put it in a retirement account. You always watch them because things change. And stocks, blue chip stocks, go bankrupt. That happens. So you always got to watch. All right, I'm through with that group. I'm going to go on to one of my favorite groups, and that's the Electrical Contracting Manufacturing Group. This is TTMI, TTM Technologies, and this group is just super strong. Top five group. You could see the classic textbook, cup with handle breakout. Now it's just surfing the five like Stephanie Gilmore had a nice move on Friday, excuse me, Thursday. We have a 3 and a half day weekend, so I'm going a little bonkers. But You can see the movement here in the last, I don't know, 12 weeks. Nice 3 month run since we got liberated. And I know the high tide flag crowd will be pointing out this is a high tide flag. Yeah, so it went from yeah, 15 to 44. Yeah, okay. So we'll look for a pullback in TTMI. Wouldn't be chasing that performance, but definitely a strong mover. Another one that I like in the group, I had this one on the ready list last week at mcstockcharts.com. I like the 144.27. And if you didn't catch it there, it's had a little wiggle at the 150. It had the pullback there on what was that, Tuesday? That was your chance under 150. Now it closed at 159. This one's surfing the five like Kelly Slater as well, and just trading higher. You don't have to own it long to make money in this stock. As long as that five's trading higher, like it is, like every day, and it's above that green line, yeah, you're making money. So let's just go back to here when it pulled back to the five. Yeah, the five was at yeah, 133.72. You look a little later, and it's at 135. 137. So it just keeps going higher. It's like I say, you don't have to hold CLS very long to make money in that stock. Another one I like is my boys, the Solar Brothers at Sanmina. Yeah, this is a founder-led company, cup with handle, textbook breakout, and just surfing the five here. This one's fantastic. I expected to have a little trouble with 100, but this group is super strong, and there's just a lot of them in this group. I'm not going to get to all of them. I'm going to stop right here. This is Jabil had the cup with handle. It broke out here on this earnings report. The 17th, it was up 9%. It's just been trending with the five. Got that David Ryan ant, so that one is strong as well. All right, I'm going to move on to another area that I like. Not much discussed is this heavy construction. This is Will Dan Group, Will and Dan. This one's just broke out and just surfing the five, getting a little extended here. This is a weekly review, so I got to see. This one up 16% last week. There you can see the consolidation. These things are just, yeah, really super strong, making new highs. This is Quanta Services, probably my favorite in the group, although I shouldn't say that because I like a lot of them. Obviously, had this, cup shape pattern, cup with handle, 3 weeks tight, blasted higher. Gosh, man, Sterling in this group, STRL. Yeah, another consolidation and there's moving higher. Let's see this one on the daily. Hmm. Yeah, another strong stock. So I'm going to stop there. I'm just pointing out that this group has just got a lot of them that are looking pretty good. This is AGX pulled back, right? Broke out. This was a leader, hit that high of 246, and people give up on it as it trades down to 193. I wouldn't do that. I think it's got legs. But there's going to be profit takers along the way. All right, that's enough for that group. I've got to get to the cybersecurity names. And I talked earlier about stocks that are, kind of overvalued and wildly valued. This group has got a heavy premium, because it's an essential, right? Businesses have to have cybersecurity, otherwise you won't have a business and they need the best. This one is Zscaler, got the cash flow, return on equity, it's got the growth numbers. But, it's got a 49 billion market cap for, you're looking at a couple billion in sales. It's trading like 25 times sales. Technically, it had this consolidation after this breakout from earnings. It's not a high type flag. If you want to, in spirit, okay, it is. Whatever floats your boat. A pattern is a pattern. I don't get too caught up in patterns, but it had this 3 weeks tight pattern and then rallied 4%. And last week just pulled back. Last week was a short week, but I believe it had like an inside week. So I'm still watching Zscaler. CrowdStrike, a leader in this group. Once again, I'm not going to say overvalued. It's just a lot of growth is priced in. How about that? 127 billion market cap. And you're looking at what, I don't know, 5 billion in sales. So this is, yeah, 25 times sales. And when you're looking at growth stocks, you just look at growth, and these guys have been delivering growth. This is decelerating here, sales growth 32, 29, 25, 20. I still like CrowdStrike. Why? Because Wall Street likes it and they're buying it and they're driving the stock higher. I did have a little trouble there at 500, but closed Thursday at 514. Just, I think you got to own one of them. The one I prefer is Rubrik. It's a little smaller name, 17 billion market cap. And it's pulled back. It made that run from 47 to 103. Once again, for the high tide flag crowd. Yeah, okay. You could say that's a pole and that's a flag. Whatever floats your boat. I don't really care. But to me, technically speaking, it was surfing the five, made the high, got a little extended, buy the rumors, sell the news on earnings, and it just pulled back to its 50 for the first time since the breakout. To me, that's a buy. Yeah, so am I going to put that on my ready list? You got to sign up for mcstockcharts.com to find out. But yeah, that rubric, I like rubric, and pull back to the 50 for the first time is usually a gift in an uptrending market. How about that? And then another one in this group is Cloudflare, and it's been a monster. I did have this one on the ready list, but I pulled it because it's just a little extended here. But it did pull back to the 21 last week and bounce, so I like that. Let's take a look at the weekly. Yeah, it had this pretty steep cup and no handle. This thing just popped, so they don't always need handles. 3.4%, below its high. It gave back a little bit last week. I think this is yeah, I like this one to trade up to 200. So what's your, reward? Yeah, at least 200, right? $9. What's your risk? Well, it's finding support at the 21. So, you always got to weigh your risk reward, and you don't want to lose too much money, but the 21 is 181. So up 9, down 10. I don't know, on Cloudflare. Strong stock. And like I said, I think you got to own one of them. I'm going to move on because I talked earlier about earnings reports coming up, and the banks have been ripping, but they have earnings coming up this week. I don't know. When is it? This week, 14th, 15th? I don't know. What's Monday, the 7th? Coming up. So next week, that's what I'm saying. I expect a pullback, some caution ahead of earnings. JP Morgan's been on a heater, just absolutely ripping. Citigroup, they're reporting on the 15th as well. I mean, bank stocks. This is confirmation of an uptrend. When you get the financials moving like this is very bullish in my opinion. And they had their stress test. They all, not all of them, but a lot of them announced stock buyback programs, really strong stock buyback programs. These are all surfing the five after breaking out. Similar profiles. They all are reporting earnings soon. So I'm expecting a pullback next week, as well as another monster is Netflix. They're reporting on the 17th. So this is all a week ahead of us here. So yeah, after a big run, this is like the leading stock coming out of that Liberation Day, and it's had a big run. You got to expect some profit taking going into earnings. Now, if they had been falling and they were down 20, 30% going into earnings, I would say there's probably going to be some short covering and a bounce into earnings. But this is not the scenario. We have a big, massive run, probably going to be some profit taking into that new data point. And they're probably going to crush it and rip higher another 10%. But you got to expect investors to have a little bit of caution and take some profits ahead of the earnings. And that's why I'm expecting, pullback next week. And that's not the end of the world. We're going to embrace pullbacks as long as this market's in an uptrend. All right, that's enough of all that. I'm just going to get to some leading stocks before I go. Now, these are the ones that are showing relative strength here that I post every morning at MC Stock Charts. And this is a fluid list. Some come on, some come off. AEVA is another one that was applied. AAOI, this is AEVA, had that one day where it pulled back, got a little bit ahead of itself, pulled back to the 21 one day. And what did it do? Found support and bounce. That's what you want to see out of your leading stocks. So yeah, it was down 9% last week, but bounced off to 21. So that's what you want to see out of your these relative strength stocks. Affirm is another one in this group. Yeah, Affirm. Let's go to the yeah. Look at this, man. Just ripping off the Liberation Day number, which is what, 30? Now it's at 69. So it's been more than a two bagger. And this is why I say that I'm attracted to these names, because you're going to get a two bagger in a short period of time, or a three bagger or a four bagger, as opposed to NVIDIA and Microsoft, which might go from 3 trillion to 4 trillion. Sure, you're going to get a nice gain out of that, but these ones are going to give you, two baggers and three baggers in a short period of time. And that's kind of what I'm looking for. Speaking of which, I missed the move in this one. I was watching it last week, up 130% on Friday. It's up 3,000% last week, and that is life-changing stuff. You go from, what was it, 12 to 161 in a week. Yeah. So if you just put some money in this one, yeah, I wouldn't be buying it now, but it's probably going higher. So that you could see why it's on our relative strength list. Avis, and this one, very underrated stock. Nobody talks about it, but this one's been what, 54 to 181. So a three bagger in a very short period of time. Cracker Barrel. The restaurant stocks have been kind of hammered lately, and this one, cup with handle breakout showing relative strength. Another one, what else? Oh, Coinbase. Yeah, this one's been super strong, and this is pulled back a little bit here last week. Dave's not here. Another one, just monster move here. You can see Dave. Ooh, this is why I say, yeah. I mean, this one went from what, 78, even lower than that, 65 to 281. So this is what I'm talking about, these smaller names, the 3.7 billion market cap giving you, three and four baggers in a very short period of time. Dave and Sezzle kind of trade together, just surfing the five. So you can see why these are on the relative strength list, up 10% last week. Just a bunch of names. And if are at the MC Stock Chart, you get these every morning. TSSI pulled back last week. 7% is still on that list because it's above its 10. Other names in the group showing. Oh, Reddit. Reddit to me is yeah, we had this one on our Reddit list here, as it was we saw the short-term moving averages trade through the 50, the 10 and the 21, that's actually the 5. And then it kind of pulled back here to the 21. We had this on our Reddit list, I think about 110, 112. Yeah. And then it just broke through, the 200. I know, traditionally we don't like to buy stocks below the 200, but this one is showing relative strength. And now it's just, been a monster. To me, I still think this is actionable. If we get that pullback this week, the high was 164, but it made that high on what, Valentine's week, 230. Now it's consolidating in a base. These guys, I guess the ad spending has been up, and I think Reddit's going to have, strong report. Once again, it's got the growth profile that I like because I'm kind of, an old school guy that way. The 68, 71, you say, oh, 71, 61 is decelerating. I'll take 61% sales growth with triple digit earnings growth. Expected to earn a couple of bucks next year. Yeah, it's an expensive stock for sure at 29 billion. But if the institutions are buying it, which they have the last few weeks, I think it's still, an actionable stock on pullbacks. And anyway, I'm just going to stop right there and say thank you for watching at mcstockcharts.com. We never give up, except in honor of the great Steve Jobs. I have one more thing. I'm not going to do the CoreWeave eBay comparison, although I didn't do CoreWeave, and I like CoreWeave right here. For you, cup with handle guys, excuse me, cup with handle, you high tide flag folks. That could be construed as a high tide flag. It looks better to me on the weekly here, as you can see this whoosh, nice move, pulled back 1 week, rallied up 3% last week, so, got support at the moving averages. And for me, I'm just thinking like, okay, if this stock was going to go down, why couldn't the shorts push it below the 21 here? Why couldn't they push it below, what is it, like 151 was the low 2 weeks ago? Found support there, 151 at the 21 here, this magenta line, and now it's bouncing. So to me, I think this thing's going to trade higher. I do. I like this higher low profile. I like this pinching in here. And above the high from last week, I like it even more. 166.22. Yeah. So that's one that I'm watching. But that's not my point. I wanted to point out, I mentioned earlier about these highly speculative names that Wall Street's buying and anticipating growth. And here's the opposite of that. These are, you could say Dutch Bros is, 11 billion market cap for what, 1.5 billion sales. So it's trading, I don't know, 8 times sales. So it's an expensive stock as well, but it's not getting, it has sales growth. It has earnings growth. It has, cash flow. It has return on equity. This is a thriving business. This is not a fly-by-night, speculative, no sales company. But it's not getting the love from Wall Street at all. And you could see the RS line heading south as this thing trades sideways and the market makes new highs. This is definitely a laggard, right? What happens with Bros is it rallies on new data points like earnings. Wall Street comes in or short sellers have to cover and it rallies. And then we get profit takers. And of course, this is during a correction period. But even during the liberation time, it only went up, a fraction compared to the indexes, made this cup with handle. Looked like it was going to break out, but it was a fake out and just pulled back to the 50. And now it's just kind of wallowing below the 50. This is one with sales and earnings growth, and I think it's going to move with the new data point, which isn't until August 6th. So not too far away, a month away. But I guess you could say this is a stock for the people in Missouri where you have to show me. And when they show Wall Street that they're growing and they're taking market share, which they will, and their same store sales are ripping, then it's going to pop again. And I think that's the way this thing's going to move for a while until Wall Street gets comfortable with Dutch Bros or until Dutch Bros expands into New York and the people in Wall Street can go experience Dutch Bros for themselves. But right now, it's kind of a West Coast, South type of a company. Maybe they'll expand internationally to Mexico, Canada, Europe. We know Europeans like their coffee. We know Central America, South America. If you've traveled there, they like their coffee. I don't know how, it's in 18 states right now. So this is just in its infancy of growth. They talked about, they have 1,000 stores. They're going to have 2,029 by 2029, which is kind of cute, but they're growing and there's growing pains with growing. Some people say that they're, diluting shares. Um, Only 85 million shares in the float, but they're not. That's BS. They're not diluting shares. They did a secondary offering. I think they have plenty of cash. And I believe they're going to be raising guidance here. Anyway, this is the opposite of those speculative names of quantum computing, the air taxis, and along with TGTX and other, you got to show me, right? Once again, this is not a cheap stock. It's a 5.8 billion with about, I don't know, what, 550. It's about 10 times sales. If I go to the data, you can see the sales here. And this is once again, the CEO talks about growth is not linear. You have some quarters where you see jumps in growth and other quarters where it's a little dormant. I think the last quarter where they went from, I think was like 63 to 120, 90% sales growth was a down quarter for them. And I think this quarter, which they're going to announce maybe the first week in August, or the last week in July, it's going to be an up quarter. So from 73, they were doing about 10 million per quarter. Then you see the jump here to like 20, I don't know. I can't do the math there. 17 and 8, 25 million. And then this one was only 12 million. So I'm thinking in between like 12 and 25, maybe about 20 million. So about 140 in sales, which will give them about, I don't know, 90, over 90% sales growth. And the earnings growth is coming as well. The CEO said they're not going to be spending as much on, advertising. He said they made a TV ad where only one person watched it, and that was him. But next year they're going to earn, buck 75. I think probably closer to $2 for a stock growing at this rate. I think 36 is awfully cheap for this one. But you got to look over time, right? You got to look at these stocks over time. TGTX is up 93% over the past year, so they're outperforming. Um, Dutch Bros is up 60%. The next one I'm going to do is SMCI, which is down 42%. I think that one's undervalued as well. And since I mentioned it, I'm going to SMCI, which had this massive move, right? And then it topped, and then people saying, "Oh, blow off top, whatever it's done for." I wouldn't give up on this. They did do the 10-for-1 stocks, but there you could see the the Weinstein stage 2 advance, stage 3 no more advancing, stage 4 decline. But now I think it's coming out of this uh, stage 4, stage 1, I should say. That's a stage 1 base and going to enter a stage 2 advance phase. I would say that 4780 is an area of interest here on this little stage 1 base, and I think it's going to get back above that old high of 66.44. That's not an all-time high. That, like I said, that was a 10-for-1 stock split, so that would be 660. So this is split adjusted numbers. But I've got to get to the data here, the fundamentals. Like I said, it's the opposite trade. Wall Street's not buying what these guys are selling. Cash flow, return on equity. These guys have, big time sales. What is this? 15 million. I think that what did they say? 35 billion in sales, and it's a 28 billion market cap. Come on, this is trading at less than one time sales. To me, SMCI, Dutch Bros, TGTX, three stocks that are opposite of those quantum stocks, opposite of those air taxis. And I think those are names, if you have patience, will be reward. So anyway, I could be wrong, but I'm often wrong and never in doubt. So thank you for watching at mcstockcharts.com. We never give up.